Welcome to this episode of Uplifting News Sleep Aid Daily, where we read you good news to fall asleep to. Today is Thursday, April 30th, 2020. Our uplifting stories include: exonerated man freed from prison is now having a beautiful time quarantining in hotel. A local grocer fed a man who was stealing from their store. And Jewish brothers collect yarmulkes to make face masks for those who are homeless. Now, breathe in. Breathe out. And relax as we dive into these stories. Our first story is from NBC News by Rich Shapiro. Exonerated man freed from prison, now in hotel quarantine. I could watch Netflix. Dressed in a white t-shirt and maroon shorts, Kevin Harrington beamed as he walked out of the Macomb Correctional Facility in southern Michigan. After a few steps in the fresh air, he let go of the dolly holding his belongings and raised his hands to the sky. Harrington had spent 17 years behind bars for a murder he had always insisted he didn't commit. On Tuesday, a judge tossed his conviction and threw out his life sentence after prosecutors determined the lead detective coerced a key witness into implicating Harrington and a second man. A group of friends and relatives were outside the prison waiting for him, several of them cheering his name, his mother shaking a tambourine. But Harrington couldn't hug them, and he still can't go home. Because of a COVID-19 outbreak at the prison, the 37-year-old former inmate is now holed up at a hotel for a voluntary 14-day quarantine, a confinement of sorts, but one far more pleasant than what he was used to. I could eat Grubhub, I could watch Netflix, I get to sleep on a nice, comfy bed, Harrington told NBC News by phone from his hotel room. It's been beautiful. Speaking 2 days after his release, Harrington said he still doesn't have much in his spacious hotel room. A few pairs of clothes, his daily bread devotional pamphlet, and the 4 bags of legal work and 1 bag of family photos he lugged out of prison. That's all I had in 17 years, 6 months, 2 days, and 37 minutes of being wrongfully incarcerated, Harrington said. I really like to call it being kidnapped, because kidnapping is taking someone somewhere they don't want to be without their consent or will. The case began in late September 2002 when the body of a man named Michael Martin was found in a field across the street from his apartment building in the city of Inkster. Investigators questioned a local woman who gave conflicting accounts of what she observed, but told them several times she had no idea who fatally shot Martin. "You got up in the middle of the night and you saw something," Inkster Police Detective Anthony Abdallah said to her during an interview at police headquarters, according to a transcript. "No, I didn't," she said. Later in the interview, Abdallah appeared to threaten the woman. "We don't want to leave you here and somebody take your kids, okay?" he said. She eventually told investigators she saw Harrington and a second man, George Clark, assault Martin and drag him into a field, and then heard gunshots. Harrington was 20 years old. He had been taking classes at Wilberforce University in Ohio, the first in his family to attend college, but was at that point trying to figure out the next phase of his life. Clark, who was 31 at the time of his arrest, had been taking care of his ailing mother who was struggling to manage severe diabetes and arthritis. The 2 men had grown up in the same housing project in Inkster, but they were 11 years apart in age and didn't know each other well. At their trial, the woman took the stand and denied witnessing the shooting or hearing any shots, but she admitted to having implicated Harrington and Clark at a pre-trial hearing, according to an appeals court summary of the trial. There was no physical evidence linking Harrington or Clark to the murder, but the jury found them guilty. Harrington's verdict was overturned on appeal, and he went on to have 3 more trials. The next 2 ended in hung juries, but the 4th resulted in a conviction. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole in February 2006. Clark received a life sentence after his motion for a new trial was denied in 2003. Behind bars, Harrington said he poured his energy into fighting his conviction. "I didn't have time to be angry, bitter," he said. "I had to fight. I had to read." The Michigan Innocence Clinic, which is run by the University of Michigan Law School, began looking into his case in 2009. By 2015, however, all of Harrington's appeals were exhausted and it seemed his fate was largely sealed. But last fall, the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office Conviction Integrity Unit opened an investigation into the case. A 6-month probe uncovered a disturbing pattern of behavior from the original lead detective that involved threatening and coercing a number of witnesses, according to a statement from the prosecutor's office. The unit concluded that Harrington and Clark did not receive fair trials as a result of the detective's conduct, but the prosecutor's office has not reached any conclusion regarding actual innocence of Mr. Harrington and Mr. Clark, it said in the statement. Imran Saeed, the assistant director of the Michigan Innocence Clinic, praised the prosecutor's office for recommending the convictions be vacated and the charges dismissed. Having investigated this case for more than a decade, the Michigan Innocence Clinic firmly believes in Mr. Clark and Mr. Harrington's innocence, said Saeed, who was a second-year law student when he began working on the case in 2009. All of the evidence indicates this is a case of police misconduct where 2 men who had absolutely nothing to do with the murder were charged, convicted, and served 17 years in prison, while the true perpetrator remained at large. Inkster Police Chief William Riley said the detectives involved in the case are no longer on the force, and he would welcome an outside investigation. "We have nothing to hide here," Riley said. "I'm like every other citizen that feels if a criminal act occurred in the prosecution of this case, they need to be held accountable." Abdallah, who served as the lead detective on the case, is now a police officer in the Detroit suburb of Harper Woods. Reached Friday afternoon, he declined comment. "Man, you can't talk to me about shh like that," Abdallah said. Clark was released from the Lakeland County facility on April 9th. His mother never got a chance to see him walk free. She died in 2004, just 2 years after Clark's arrest. "Basically, she found out what they did to me. She gave up," he said. "This is something I have to live with. But even though she's not here in physical form, I'm sure she's looking down and seeing that justice finally prevailed." The prison where Clark was held has had 393 prisoners who tested positive for the virus and 9 inmate deaths linked to COVID-19, according to the Michigan Department of Corrections. Clark moved in with his family members in Michigan but has been social distancing. "I never gave up hope that one day this would happen," he said. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, he's hardly left the house since walking out of prison, but that hasn't been a hardship for him. "I'm enjoying every minute of my freedom," Clark said. At the Macomb Correctional Facility, where Harrington was held, 84 inmates have tested positive and 4 have died from the virus. "It was serious, serious, serious," Harrington said of the condition behind bars. "Think about a closed-in environment with a rampant virus ravaging through. I've never experienced any symptoms," he added. "But for the sake of my family, I'm sacrificing another 14 days." Clark and Harrington are both planning to sue the state, seeking $50,000 for each year they were in prison under the state's Wrongful Imprisonment Compensation Act. Their lawyer, Wolfgang Mueller, is also planning to file suit against the city of Inkster and the lead detectives. "I fully expect to hold the police accountable for what happened here," Mueller said. "They flat out framed these guys." Harrington's first meal after leaving prison was a cheeseburger with French fries and a slice of cheesecake. His hotel stay is being paid for by the Michigan Innocence Clinic. The program was unable to cover the cost of his meals, but a call for donations from students was answered so quickly that enough money was raised in 2 hours, said law student Danielle Bernstein. These students have also begun a fundraising effort to help him cover housing and transportation costs as he adjusts to his new life. Harrington has yet to venture off hotel grounds. He's been spending his days FaceTiming on his new iPhone with his family, watching television, and reading his devotional pamphlet, as well as the 2-page court document ordering his release from prison. "I enjoy reading it," he says. "It's so refreshing after what I fought for all these years." He's having trouble sleeping at night. His room gets pitch black, a stark contrast to his 17 years of sleeping in a cell with a bright light shining into it. But Harrington is not at all complaining about his current setup at the hotel. "There's other people here, they're friendly. It's a cool atmosphere," he said. "If I need more sheets, towels, they got free breakfast, muffins, and granola. I can get coffee. For free," he exclaimed. "All the stuff is free." Reflecting on his quarantine status, Harrington said he thinks it's actually for the best. It gives him a chance to ease into his new life on the outside. "I look at it as one chapter closed in my life, and this new chapter is so bright and beautiful. It's almost like a transitional period for me," he said by phone from his hotel room. "And being here, I'm not thrust back into the hustle bustle of life after being gone so long." Before Harrington hung up, his lawyer nudged him to explain one of his final acts behind bars. Harrington said he took stock of the possessions he had accumulated after 17 years in captivity and figured there were others who needed them more. So he walked along a wing of the prison, known as the Rock, and handed out nearly everything he had: his television, his clothes, his snack, and ramen noodles. "I was able to give up 54 items, Harrington said. "I knew the hardships of going through that type of journey. I just wanted to give back one last time." The only clothes he had left were the white t-shirt and maroon shorts. It was about 35 degrees outside, but at that point, Harrington had no other options. He would soon head for the prison gates, where his family was waiting for him, and so was the rest of his life. This podcast is hosted on Anchor.fm. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. It's free, there's creation tools to allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute the podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor.fm to get started. Our next article is from the Waterloo Chronicle by Bill Jackson, read by special guest Emily Afton.
We will feed you. Man who tried to steal from Kitchener's Central Fresh Market shown compassion over justice. A local grocer is being lauded on social media after giving away groceries to a man who was stealing from his store. Mike Williamson, owner of Central Fresh Market in the heart of Kitchener-Waterloo, wasn't looking for publicity for himself, according to his son Josh. However, his heartfelt gesture on Monday garnered hundreds of likes and shares on social media thanks to customers who witnessed the act. "Just witnessed a man caught stealing at our local grocery," reads a tweet posted Monday evening. Watched the owner confront him and pull fruits and vegetables out of his pack, then heard the owner say, "We will feed you." 5 minutes later, saw the man walking through the parking lot with a bag full of groceries. According to Josh Williamson, a middle-aged man was going around the store putting mainly produce in a knapsack. Williamson's father found broccoli among the items when he confronted him on his way out. "You could tell he was just trying to feed himself," Williamson said. "We always prefer people to come in and ask for help rather than steal. But when you catch people stealing just to eat, it's a much different story." Williamson's father grabbed the man a submarine sandwich and pop, some chips, and a bunch of vegetables in a bag and sent him on his way. Central Fresh Market makes regular food bank donations and is noticing an increase in food insecurity, and ultimately hopes to highlight the issue in the community as a result of the publicity. "So we're really trying to push on that and drive the awareness that a little bit really means a lot to some people," Williamson said. Central Fresh Market is also planning a meat giveaway and a matching donation fundraiser to assist those in need in the weeks ahead. Our last story is from Blooms.
Jewish brothers collect yarmulkes to make face masks for Houston's homeless. A pair of teens in Texas came up with a clever way to reverse the shortage of face masks and help protect the homeless population in their hometown at the same time. Matthew and Jeremy Jason had already been volunteering every Friday with an organization that feeds the hungry in downtown Houston. After the COVID-19 pandemic started, they came up with the idea of using the traditional skull caps worn during religious events and turning them into face masks. The brothers have collected a lot of these caps on various special occasions over the years, like their coming-of-age bar mitzvahs. We decided to put them to good use, Matthew told the Good News Network. The youngest of 3 brothers who belong to the Brith Shalom congregation, he and his siblings asked their synagogue to help collect the Kippas, Hebrew word for yarmulke, calling their campaign, Kippas to the Rescue. In less than a week, we were able to collect enough of them to make 160 face masks, Matthew said. My parents, brothers, and I worked very hard to sew elastic bands on them, and they were ready to be delivered by Friday. It was so great to see how I was able to help out, and people were so appreciative. The Jewish congregation continues to donate the caps, and to date, the family has collected 693 and sewn 316 of them. Just sew both ends of 6-inch elastic strips on each side to anchor the cap around the ears. A high school sophomore at the Auti International School, Matthew has been a mensch for years. To honor his bar mitzvah, he launched Street Birthdays, which celebrates birthdays for homeless people and is still going strong. Once every month, he brings cakes and candles and sings happy birthday to all who were born that month. Matthew hopes that if people like the Kippa idea, they can do the same in their own communities. That's it for tonight. Whoever you are and wherever you are, thank you for joining us at Uplifting News Sleep Aid Daily. Stay safe and stay inside.